Welcome aboard sailing vessel Sequester. Sequester is a 1972 Allied Princess 36. The hull was originally laid up in November of 1972, which means that this boat was probably launched for the first time for the 1973 summer. The Allieds were built in Catskill, New York, up on the Hudson River, and this boat is number 8 of 140 Allied Princesses built. The boat itself is an Allied Princess 36 Ketch, and what I'm going to be doing today is giving you a quick video tour of the interior, if I can get myself to move away from the toasty warm heater that's running on this chilly day on the Maine coast. I'm going to start the tour today by taking a look at the galley. Always an important part of any sailboat. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Sequester has a small galley. This is typical of the early Allied princesses, with a single stainless steel sink, an ice box. This boat does not have refrigeration, but we get by with put a block of ice in there. This is Maine. You don't really need much refrigeration to keep things cold. And the boat has a 3-burner propane stove with oven. Behind the stove and the icebox are cabinets where we can store dishes. There's also a little bit of storage underneath the sink. And over here, behind the main counter, there is storage for miscellaneous. It actually has cutouts to store 8 bottles of wine. Here's the next thing I'd like to look at. This is the quarter berth. The Allied Princess 36 has a quarter berth, and just forward of the quarter berth there is a chart table where the electrical panel is located, and on this boat the windlass control and windlass circuit breaker, and also the propane control, as well as a lamp. Between the quarter berth and the galley is the companionway. Just pan back so you can see that. And underneath the companionway is the cover for the engine. Now, moving forward on the port side, or left side of the boat as you face forward, there is a U-shaped settee right here, with a table that drops down, and the cushions can be rearranged to make this into a pretty good sized double berth. Above the settee in back, there's storage behind the back of the cushion, and there's a shelf up there for more storage. There's an opening port, a fixed port, and then over the chart table another fixed port. There's plenty of light coming in. And if you look down underneath, you'll see these doors under the settee, and there's storage underneath there. The entire volume under the settee is available for storage. Now I'm moving to look at the starboard side of the boat. You can see the stove there in the galley. There's a bulkhead that separates the galley from the settee, another 6.5 foot long settee that can be used as a berth. There is a Dickinson Newport P12000 propane fireplace that's running right now, putting out some nice heat. And again, storage behind the settee cushion and a shelf above, and underneath more storage, although on this boat the aft part of the storage under the settee is taken up by a 25-gallon water tank. And also above the galley, a fixed port, another fixed port above the settee, and an opening port above the settee. Looking forward from the main cabin, we have a pass-through to the V-Berth, or forward cabin. On the port side of the pass-through is the head, and on the starboard side there's storage in the form of a hanging locker, which I'll show you a little bit more detail in a second, and some drawers. Let's take a look at the head now. The head on this boat is very small. It's only about 2.5 feet wide, but that's because the only thing in the head is the head itself, or toilet. Above the head there's an opening port. There's also a vent run by a Nicro day-night solar vent up in the overhead to exhaust anything you want out of the head. There's a cabinet behind the head itself, which you can see right here. That cabinet contains a holding tank, and down below the boat has a Wilcox Crittenden Junior all bronze head. And there is a shower set up in there, which we never use because it's a real mess to use it. You have to wipe the entire head down. All of the wood in the boat is teak, by the way. Opposite the head there is another opening port with a shelf under it, and then 5 drawers, and they're big drawers, about 2 feet deep. And at the bottom of the drawers there's a storage cabinet that I use to keep my spare anchor in. Moving forward into the forward cabin, or V-berth, we have more storage cabinets and the sink from the head. So this is where the vanity is, and there is additional storage underneath the vanity down there, but it's a little taken up by plumbing. Here's another view of the vanity. There's a second door from the forward cabin into the head here with a mirror on it, which is right next to the sink and vanity. And finally, looking at the V-berth itself, it's a nice big V-berth. There's an insert, you can see it forward there, that fits into the gap in the V-berth, making this into a huge double bed. And there's an overhead hatch, you can see up here, and 2 opening ports, one on each side. So this is a very spacious V-berth, and there's storage underneath. That cabinet underneath is the entire underside of the V-berth, and it's actually big enough for me at 6 feet to crawl in there, although it's a bit of a challenge to get through these little doors. Now I'll just move on to a couple other details of the boat. One feature of the Allied Princesses in the early builds, like this one, remember this is hull number 8 out of 140 built, and it's from the first year that these boats were built, is that the bulkheads were originally a wood grain formica, which made the boat very dark inside. When I got the boat, I didn't like that, so I painted all the bulkheads. So these bulkheads have all been painted. They're painted white and with varnished teak trim, which really brightens up the boat. This style of interior is called a Herreshoff interior. Now, let's take a look at the cabin sole. Originally, the Allied had a plywood cabin sole with a very thin layer of teak veneer on it with black strips simulating rubber caulking between the teak strips. Well, that got pretty ratty over the 40 years since the boat was built, and about 10 years ago I ripped that out and built a completely new cabin sole out of cherry and white maple. This sole is not veneer, it's 3/4 of an inch thick, it's all laminated together and then varnished with 8 coats of 2-part urethane varnish, which makes a very nice warm cabin sole. It's lighter in color than teak, but it seems to be holding up pretty well. It's been at least 10 years or so since I last varnished that. Anyway, that pretty much covers the interior of Sequester. We'll do a little pan around the main cabin again. Here's the U-shaped settee. Looking forward, the passageway into the forward cabin and the starboard settee. Altogether, if you wanted, this boat could sleep 6 people, but it would be really crowded. I certainly wouldn't want to be in this boat with 5 other people. But for 2 people, it's really nice. It's quite spacious for a 36-foot boat of this vintage. It's not as roomy as a modern 36-footer, but it's still pretty roomy. Here's the chart table again, and finally the front of the quarter berth. So that's the tour of Seaquester. Give you a feel for what it's like aboard a 1972 Allied Princess 36 Ketch. If you like this, please click the like button, and if you want notification of my next video, please click the subscribe button. I will, over the next week or so, be doing a couple of additional videos on this boat. The first is going to be topsides details, in which I'm going to talk about the rigging, the sailing setup, and the equipment on deck. And then I'm going to do a video about systems, in which I talk about the systems the boat is equipped with. Okay, thank you very much.